Ethan Harvey, and with a little help from my brother Reuben here, I'm going to tell you the story of Francis Patrick Williams, a soldier who fought on the Western Front in the Great War with the 15th Hussars. These are the uniforms the soldiers would have worn from my private collection. They were hot in the summer, wet in the winter, and generally very uncomfortable. This is my attic, which I have converted into a mini museum, which houses my memorabilia collection. This also includes quite a lot of things from the First World War. As you can see, I have ID cards, postcards, replica trench diorama, also lots of things about Frank. This cavalry sword is a type of sword he would have used during the early battles of the First World War. Also, which is rather interesting, is this painting of the ceremonial dress he would have worn pre-World War I. So that's a bit more about Frank. But to give you a feel of what life was really like for him, I've brought you out here to this guardhouse me and my brother helped construct. It is similar to the one Frank would have looked out of on the Western Front. He would have had his Lee Enfield rifle, as I have here, and his bayonet. But for the real experience of what it was like for Frank on the Western Front, I've brought you to Piccadilly Circus, Ypres, the trench I helped to construct in my garden. This day would begin early, very early, before dawn in fact, when they would rise after a few hours' sleep, around about 4 in the morning, having fired on enemy lines. If they weren't involved in a push forward, they would work in the trenches, digging tunnels, trying to keep dry, catching up on sleep, and if they could, write letters home. Night time was what soldiers like Frank feared the most, when they might be ordered out into the dreaded no man's land. 20,000 British troops were killed on just one day in the Battle of the Somme, showing just how dangerous it was for soldiers like Frank. But it was the Christmas of 1914 that brought Allied and German soldiers together. Men like Frank Williams went out into no man's land, exchanged gifts, and may have even played a game of football. For one person who knows exactly what Frank was like is his daughter, Pat. What about his time in the trenches? Did he tell you anything about that?
Yes, there was a very, very lovely thing that he said. They were fighting in the trenches in France, fighting the Germans, and this was Christmas Eve. And he said, suddenly that went quiet, and he said they could hear the Germans in their trenches. They were all singing Silent Night.
Well, Frank was lucky enough to make it back home to Norwich alive, and these are his medals from the First World War. And what about after the war? What did he do then?
He was a fitter or an engineer, and he did work for Lawrence and Scott's for a time, and Barnard's.
This is Frank's story, and you might be wondering why it is I know so much about Frank. He is my great-great-grandfather. Pat is my great-grandma. This is why I reenact, to keep alive his memory and the memory of others who have served in the wars. I hope you enjoyed it. This is Ethan Harvey reporting from Open Academy for ITV News Anglia School Report.